Welcome to my Wellness Spring podcast, where we uncover truths behind wellness and challenge what we've been told to accept. In this episode, I'm thrilled to chat with Maxine Shea, co-founder of the Hemp Collective, and a woman who refused to accept nothing can be done. After facing a rare pituitary brain tumour, Maxine turned her health crisis into a powerful mission that's now impacting hundreds of stores across Australia. From breaking hemp misconceptions to redefining everyday products, her journey is both courageous and deeply inspiring. This conversation may just change how you think about your health and what you put on your body. Welcome, Maxine, to Wellness Spring. It's so lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So it's I really enjoyed the field day that you organised with iHemp. It was absolutely amazing. And before we delve into your hemp journey and your health journey, could you please tell the listeners where you were from, where were you born, and your education, just so they can get a little feel about you?
Yeah, sure thing. I was born in Melbourne, Victoria. I lived there for a little bit of my life, and then I actually moved to tropical North Queensland, and that's where I spent a lot of my childhood there. I studied a lot of things, actually. I studied things from ecotourism to zero waste and resource recovery to photography to marketing. So I've actually done a lot of things within my scope to become to where I am in Hemp Collective. The zero waste and resource recovery was probably the biggest one, because that's what we've threaded through our brand and has really made our products part of the solution and not the problem. So yeah, I've kind of had a bit of a journey along now. I live in the beautiful region of the Byron Shire, in a little town called Ocean Shores. And we love it here. We've lived here for 10 years and absolutely love living in this region. It's beautiful, sunny, and it's close to lots of different things. So yeah, this is where I am now.
Fabulous. And can you please tell us about your career? How did it start?
You mean in hemp?
No, before hemp. So we can get that good feel of you, because I know you're back.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no. So my background mainly is in outdoor education, and that's where I met my husband 26 years ago, or however long ago it was. So we started in taking kids into the bush between 5 to 22 days. We would rock climb, raft, bushwalk, ski, sea kayak. There's so many things we did with kids in Melbourne, in Victoria, and at a company called OEG. And so that's kind of where my love and my passion for the environment started, I would say. It actually probably started a little bit before that, when I was studying tourism, ecotourism in Cairns, and then I've done a whole bunch of other things in between that. But yeah, outdoor ed was definitely the start of my career. I've done did the resource recovery, but I also did revegetation and conservation as well. And then we kind of, our careers moved, went into more admin type marketing roles. But then I also always still had that thread of that eco coming through, doing more of the, teaching people about how to recycle, about the environment and why we would want to do that. So my background's kind of been a little bit in that side of stuff. And then I kind of moved into photography. I did that for 5 years. I ran my own business. I did commercial headshot and lifestyle photography and events, and it was a great success. I did that in New Zealand for over 5 years, and then I had my son, and we really were kind of, we had a distribution company as well at the same time, and then we moved back to Australia, and that's when hemp kind of came into our lives a lot more than what it was back 10, 12 years ago.
And can you tell us who or what inspired you to start a hemp journey?
Well, actually, I would have to say it was my health. I was diagnosed around 12 years ago with a rare pituitary brain tumour. It's non-cancerous, but it's in a really weird spot in the middle of my brain. And within 3 months, they said, hey, you're going to have brain surgery. So I went and had brain surgery. And then they said, so I said, what can I do to help this? And they said, well, nothing, it's just bad luck. And personally, I didn't believe that. I kind of went, there's got to be something I can do to help. So we started kind of dissecting, what products we were using. And then we kind of researched into all of these amazing things that were going on. And we kept coming back to hemp and cannabis. And we went, what is going on here? We didn't even really know about this, 12 years ago. It wasn't really common back then. And that's kind of when the tumour started growing back really quickly, we kind of discovered, that there's other options out there, particularly in Israel. Now, I'm not saying that, my personal health journey is what led us to hemp pretty much. And that's how come we're here 9 years on today doing what we're doing.
So how did you know, what symptoms were you getting, to know that you were unwell?
Yeah, so I'd just had my son. He was probably about a year old, and I was starting to get really fatigued, like severely fatigued. And I'm a very upbeat, doing lots of things kind of character, and I was on the couch and I couldn't really move, and I was having really weird headaches and just really out of character type of personality changes. I was becoming quite depressed and suicidal, and also I was kind of going, what is this? What is going on? And then I had a collapse. I actually collapsed and went to hospital, and they went, oh, maybe something is a little bit wrong with you. And I went, all right, yeah, well, they said, oh, maybe the worst case is a tumour, but maybe it's not. Anyway, it was. And within 3 months, I was in brain surgery. And that's kind of how, it kind of came about, is looking at, our health and what we're doing with putting into our bodies and on our bodies. So that's kind of, I hope I've answered your question there, but that's kind of how we came to find hemp, and then our journey started once we moved back to Australia.
Wow, that must have been really scary to be depressed and suicidal and then to collapse. What was going through your mind, and did you think the worst like most people do?
Yeah, I think it's funny when you have something like that, and particularly when you're potentially about to go into surgery, you start really questioning, what am I doing? What's my life? How am I going to make an impact in the world? All of these things. And it was a very scary time. And, my husband's, an amazing rock. And he actually started doing a lot of the research to help me figure out how we can navigate this health issue, which was kind of thrust onto us, and what we were going to do, really. And it was a really scary time. Brain surgery is a very scary prospect. And I just want to say that I've still got my brain tumour, 10 years on, 12 years on. It has grown very marginally over time, but when we first operated, it grew back significantly. So all of the things that I've been doing, health is holistic, and everything you do, put on your body, in your body, is really important. And, we live in a beautiful part of the world, reducing stress, making sure that we've got really good rhythms within our home. Those things are really important. And that's why I live in the Byron Shire, because I'm a beach person and I love being at the beach and regrounding myself. So while it was a very scary process, it also taught me a lot about how to live a more holistic and more in tune life with my body.
And obviously you mentioned you just had your son. So what was going through your mind there, and how were you coping with looking after such a young baby?
Yeah, it was really hard. I think, I've forgotten about all those memories, actually, all those really hard, all those really hard times where you've got to muster up the strength to keep on going. Brain surgery, while brain surgery can be fine, it's the recovery time afterwards that actually was my biggest issue. It took me about 8 months to fully recover from the serious fatigue that I had after having brain surgery. And my husband was amazing with helping. but it was definitely a very difficult time to try and navigate, because I looked normal, I sound normal, everything's fine, but actually it was the internal that was probably the hardest to try and describe to people. I'm really tired, I'm fatigued, I've just had somebody in my brain, you know. It was a really it was a definite trying time, and at the same time we were renovating a 1900s property that we'd bought, a lifestyle property. We had sheep and cows and chickens and orchards and all this most amazing stuff, and I could only go out for a couple of, maybe 10 minutes at a time and go out and help with all of these things. But we were almost fully self-sufficient and doing a lot of bartering, and we did have a really beautiful community, so that was really, really important.
Wow, that's incredible. So much for, I guess, some people say when you're busy, it helps to keep your mind focused on other things. Because I know when I had my cancer in the thyroid and ovaries, I compartmentalized the thought, pretended it didn't exist, and just carried on, having fun. So, when was the turning point then for the hemp? Because what things did you try first, and how did hemp appear?
Hemp kind of appeared in a weird kind of way. We were looking at lots of different research. Mainly Mike was looking at a lot of research that was done in Israel with CBD and THC. And at the time, that was like, nobody was looking at that. Everyone was like, oh, that's a drug and you just use it for this. And we kind of going, there must be a better way to find out about these products. And so then we had moved back to Australia by that point. And it was still very difficult to access CBD and THC because I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to give any medical advice, but ultimately the things that I think really helped was, 1, making a lifestyle change, 2, stress, 3 was looking at my diet and what I was eating and how those things were actually potentially inflaming the body. I've been on all sorts of diets, juicing, it just goes on, because health isn't about that destination. It's actually that journey that you go on to get there, and the beautiful people and the things that you meet along the way. I feel like sometimes, while the brain tumour has been it really is constantly on your mind, like you said with your stuff, you try not to think about it, but it's there. I think what's really important is that you do things that work for you. What works for somebody else might not work for you. I've heard people use juice cleanse and machines and all sorts of things to cure, to try and help holistically and cure what they've got. And some people have had great success and other people haven't. So I really think that the biggest thing for me was actually listening to my body, listening to what did I need at that moment. And, eventually I ended up on the medicinal cannabis scheme, and I got access to CBD and THC, and I have done at times different things with those. I do use CBD to help manage my anxiety, and CBD does help with inflammation and all sorts of amazing things. But obviously I get that from medicinal cannabis scheme. And, I think what's important is you just need to do what works for you and your body. And so I'm still on a journey. The tumour is still there, and they still definitely want to operate on my brain again. For me, that is really unsustainable as I get older and move towards 50. I kind of feel like, how many more brain surgeries can I have? So, I've tried lots of different things. Met some beautiful people who have given me some great advice. We are in the healing capital, I feel like. So yoga, breath work, keeping fit, drinking lots of water, all of those things I think help. Thought process is another big one.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned do what suits you, because it's not one cap or one size fits all. And tuning into your body is the most important. And I find today we're living in a very fast-paced world, and people don't stop and pause, and allow themselves to be in tune with their feelings. And, over the years, when I had my health and wellness centre, you know, many top corporates came to me working very long hours, and every time they took a holiday, they would get sick on the holidays because, you know, they just like work, trying to juggle, you know, family and meetings and so forth, and then they collapse on the holidays. But yeah, there's still a lot of misunderstanding around hemp. What are the biggest myths you come across, and what do people most need to understand about this true potential?
I think the biggest, you know, we've been doing this for 9 years now, so we've seen a real change, a little bit of change in people and the way they connect to hemp in different ways, the cannabis plant, however people want to term it. I think that's actually probably the biggest thing, is actually the language with hemp, is that, you know, people get really confused. You know, will my dog get high off your shampoo bar? No, your dog won't, because ultimately it's a hemp seed oil product. And I think, you know, that's probably one of the biggest things for me, is that we've come from an education background. We've threaded education through our brand. We've been picked up by brilliant, like, big companies like CBA being part of their rewards program, and Wellbeing magazine, and Offends in their documentary. And I feel like all of those little things are actually things that help with education around hemp, because we can't rely on governments all the time to do that job for us. So I feel like it's actually the business owner's job to help educate people about the benefits of hemp, how amazing it is on the skin, how amazing it is internally. Now, I'm actually talking about hemp seed oil here. Hemp seed oil has loads of different benefits, and I'm sure we'll get to that later on. But yeah, there's been a lot of, you know, when we first started, we grew 3 hectares of hemp, and, you know, it was a beautiful crop. It was all organic. It was here in Brunswick Heads. And, you know, we could have sold that organic seed 10 times over. People wanted organic seed, but we were hand harvesting, hand planting. We were doing everything by hand hanging it up, hand getting the seeds off. It was a lot of labor and a lot of money. And so for us, we really wanted to connect with that plant and see where our products were coming from and how we turn that into our products today. So yeah, there is still a little bit of misconception. Hemp oil, is it CBD? Is it hemp seed oil? You know, CBD, that's CBD oil, THC. I think there's still a lot of education that needs to occur within that realm, but I definitely think that more people understand the benefits of hemp and what it does for the body and the skin.
Wow, you covered a lot there, and I'm so happy that you shared that you started growing hemp yourself and did it all by hand, because Brian and I are on that journey now. We've just got, you know, a small half acre to start with to see, firstly, does it grow in that area, and two, how well it grows, and then to totally connect with the plant and see if this journey is for us or not, you know. And yeah, can you share some tips for, personally for myself, but for the listeners as well, of how hard it was? What type of machinery did you have? Did you build the machinery yourself, and so forth?
Yeah, so we didn't build any machinery. We used a Planet Junior to sow into the ground. 3 hectares is a lot of land. I definitely would, I think a quarter is enough of an acre, and quite frankly, you can actually get quite a lot of product from that quarter acre. I think it's interesting, as a society, we've gone into bigger is better. But is bigger better? I don't know. I know that bigger is better on a financial space. Is it better environmentally and connection to plant? I'm not 100% sure. But when it comes to what we did, we grew organic hemp. We would use the Planet Junior, or we would broadcast. So broadcasting is just getting the seed and simply throwing it out into the soil. We had beautiful soil. We did have to condition it prior. I can't remember exactly what Mike put on, but we conditioned it, and then we grew actually a crop of sunflowers actually first, which was actually really beautiful because my son was at a Steiner school, and we would take the sunflowers and we sold a whole bunch of sunflowers, and it just brought joy. Sunflowers are just such a joyful plant. And so we actually had sunflowers first, we cropped all that in, munched it all up, and then ultimately grew the hemp on top. Now, what we did was we used biochar. So biochar is an excellent way to help the soil almost build highways. And we actually did a little bit of a test run with that. So we used the biochar in one section, which was a section that didn't get as much water. And then the other parts, we didn't use the biochar. Now, when we used the biochar in that section, the plants grew phenomenally. It was amazing, and very noticeably the difference was really interesting. And obviously there's a lot of studies coming out now with mushrooms and what that can do to create highways under the ground and how it all works in together. So biochar was definitely a new thing at the time, and we were like, yeah, let's give it a go. So we did that. And then when it came, we didn't spray anything on. We had lots of like little ladybugs and caterpillars and, natural predators of our product there. But ultimately we actually gathered a whole bunch of our friends, and we asked them to come and help us harvest. And there was farmers' friends everywhere. I've actually got a photo of my mum who was in the field, and she was covered in from almost like head to toe in farmers' friends. And she was like, why are all these farmers' friends here? And I said, yeah, that's because we're not using any chemicals to get rid of these. But we would pull them out by the roots and everything, because the whole plant technically can be used. The stalk can be used, the fibre, the roots, the leaves, the seeds. So everything on that plant could be used. However, there is legislation in that you can't take certain things off your property. So there's a lot of, I'm not going to go into DPI legislation, but ultimately, we were only using the seed of the plant. However, I was also interested in the leaves of the plant for juicing, because the juicing, there was a girl, and I'm not going to fully quote it correctly, but there was a girl who actually went to this doctor, his medicinal cannabis doctor, and she had chronic Crohn's. I think it was in her gut, and they were going to remove the whole intestine, and she started juicing hemp or cannabis. I think it was just cannabis she got at the time, because the constitution changes when you heat it. So she was juicing it, so she's not going to get high off those leaves, but it gave her immense benefit through all the amazing things that the hemp plant brings. I mean, look at the greens in it. It's phenomenal. It tastes like grass, by the way. It's like, if you can imagine the smell of freshly cut grass, that's exactly what it tastes like. So it's not the most pleasant thing, but it is a very amazing, if you get your hands on any leaves, which you'll have, you can juice them on your property. And so she actually did that, and then managed to completely cure the Crohn's. And so she didn't have to have her intestines or whatever it was taken out. And so hemp has this amazing ability, if you're open to it, to be able to help you on your health journey. So, sorry, I digress there. But ultimately, we pulled out the plants, we hung them all up, thousands and thousands of plants were hung up, and we got all of the seeds, and we actually didn't realise the amount of product that we would have. So we had to move it off the property. DPI didn't come test it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff. We did have, at the time, we had about 7 DAs rock up to our property wanting to seize our cannabis, and then they realised we actually have a hemp licence, and so they couldn't seize any of it, and they said, well, you can keep it all, but make sure you stay within your licence. So it's really important you stay within your licensing, so not taking the leaf off the property, making sure you're doing whatever you are on your property. So we hung it all up, we got all the seeds, and we managed to find a presser, we pressed some oil, and then we realised actually that is a very hard way and long way of creating hemp seed oil for our products. And then we had then COVID came, and we couldn't get workers to come and help in the farm. And then we kind of went, what are we doing? Are we going to create product, or are we going to be farmers? So we decided to focus on our product range and build our product range from there, and just support Australian hemp seed oil farmers, which quite honestly, they need all the help we can get. The more people consume hemp, the better it is for you, and the more farmers that actually get supported in the meantime. So that's kind of like what we did with our first hemp grow. We got some great coverage. The Echo came up and took lots of photos. It was actually an excellent way for us to build our brand right at the start.
Wow, that's wonderful. And you got me so excited, and I can see your lovely products behind you, and you actually gifted everybody a little goodie bag at the event.
Oh,
and
yes.
I absolutely love the face serum oil. And we did purchase a few of the healing balms. So I believe you're in over 300 stores around Australia. So tell us about that journey.
Yeah, so Hemp Collective kind of started with us growing the hemp and really getting to know what we were doing. We actually first started with hemp paper, which I showed at the event actually, and that was beautiful. And I really thought, because there's a lot of there's a lot of additional things that get created when you're using the plant for fibre, for example. So you'll have the hurd, but then you've got all of these little like fibrous bits that you need to find a market for. So I kind of thought, maybe I can help create a market for people so that they're getting diverse incomes. So that's kind of where we went with the paper. We had this beautiful full 100% hemp paper, and everyone had one in their little lanyard for the field day. And so we made hemp paper, and it was beautiful, but it was too expensive. And at the time, people were still like, can you smoke it? Blah, 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 blah. And we were like, okay, look, hemp paper isn't going to work. It's fine. We got some beautiful product. Then we went into soaps, and then we started into beeswax wraps, hemp beeswax wraps. So it was a lot of labour. And so then we moved into our product range. We kind of went, what about solid shampoo bars and conditioner bars? They're multi-purpose. This is great. And we wanted to price our products so that people would be able to access them, so that anyone can afford a $19 shampoo bar, which is 3 times liquid concentrate, and take it on their holidays. So we kind of wanted to do that. And then people started using that on their pets. And we went, okay, maybe we need to reformulate and make a pet range. So then our pet range came about. And then it kind of moved into balms. People were like, have you got anything for the skin? And we went, all right, well, yep, we'll look at that. And so our customers really gave us the feedback to kind of go, these are the products we're wanting. How can you create them for us? So our hemp hydration balm, which is an award-winning hemp hydration balm, it's beautiful. The healing balm, then we moved into repair balms, and now we've got our new products, which is our face oil, face serum, body oil, and body creams. And the range will grow. I'm not sure this year, but it is looking to grow into different areas. Our products have really evolved with our customers and what they want. And yes, we are in around 320 stores around the country. Not all of the stores stock all of our range, because we are with 3 distributors. And but, we do have Pet Stock and Pet Barn and a lot of the bigger kind of companies, whole food merchants. We've got, Market Organic. Santos is our local one. We're in a lot of really beautiful, holistic stores and varying. We're actually even in pharmacy as well. So it's kind of, we have this varying ability to, we really wanted, I'm a really colourful person. I really wanted a lot of colour in our brand. And I know that kind of goes against the grain of what most brands are doing with face products, but I really wanted people to feel happy and joyful and really enjoy the product that they're getting from the start to the finish. So our range has really evolved, and I think we make over 50 SKUs within our range now. So hemp has definitely been the hardest business I've ever run. However, it's definitely a business where I feel like the most passion I've ever had before.
Well, you're certainly colourful and joyful, and you were the breath of fresh air at the field day event and engaged everyone from the start with your journey, and hence our conversation. And and I love the touch and the feel of your products. And you talked about pets, and I know nearly every man and his dog, well, everybody has a dog, nearly. And what other animals do you focus on? Because at the moment we're just in 70 odd cows, and I've been observing them, and the flies, they get so irritated by the flies. The horse the same. We got one lonely horse on the land, and recently the cows have been getting red eye. So do you do anything for cows?
Not really for cows. Cattle is a funny one because a lot of people use a lot of chemicals on cows to, stop all those things. We did make a horse shampoo at one point, which was also horse shampoo and for large dogs. And people who used that said that it helped with Queensland itch. So whatever it did in the skin, so the hemp has omega-3s and 6s, and that would probably help with a lot of different things. But that's kind of all we do in regards to a larger pet. Obviously, we've got the hemp seed oil, which is a hemp seed and chia seed oil, which is amazing for digestion and all sorts of things, but not really for cows as such. It's an interesting one. I've never been asked that question before, so maybe there's something in it. I don't know.
I would really love it if you looked into it, because it's heartbreaking for me to see them so distressed, and it's nice when the rain comes because there's no flies and different things, insects around, and I think there needs to be more birds on our land, because when we travel we see lots of birds sitting on the cows, and I know that's to get the flies. But it's great that you bring learning into your business, and that you've carried your work through sustainability and eco-friendly, and it's plant-based. And, I know you don't test on animals. And, what are people craving for the most at the moment? Since you mentioned you listen to your customers.
Yeah, I think people, what they're after mostly is cost saving now. There's a lot of things going on in the world, and I think people want a multi-purpose product, so something that does multiple things. So, for example, our shampoo bar can be used as soap, and our conditioner bar can be used for shaving. So you've just solved 4 problems. It's like we've got one for the hair, so shampoo opens the hair follicles, and the conditioner will close the hair follicles, for example. So I think multi-purpose, or things that do those multiple uses. So maybe the body cream, that people might use it on their face and feet as well, for example. I feel like people are more moving towards less things, but give them more value. And that's kind of where I feel the market shifts. It's really interesting. In 9 years, we've seen so much market shift. It went from originally people would come directly to us, then over COVID, it went more to the wholesaler, then it moved from COVID, we had floods, and then it moved to other. So it just keeps shifting what people want and how they want it. But I think the reason why people love our products is because they are a natural product, and also they can trust our brand. We're not deceiving people. So I think that's probably, and also obviously there's a sustainability aspect there as well. I think people want more things that do more.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's so expensive, and especially now with the fuel costs rising, the war, everything has a spin-off effect, and prices are going up. And you mentioned trust in your brand, which is really good. The name is out there, and you're also part of iHemp New South Wales, as I mentioned at the start, and that's which is helping to shape the industry. So what are the biggest challenges hemp faces in Australia today?
Oh, that's a big question. What challenges does hemp face? Hemp faces a lot of challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges, I think, is education. I really do think that if the language at the start, when hemp started to become legal in Australia to consume hemp seed, I'm talking about hemp seed oil, and hemp seeds in your breakfast and stuff, that started to change and shift people's perception. So I feel like, hemp has come a long way, but I definitely think it's got a little bit longer to go in regards to education. And we've just had the Senate inquiry, and I was hoping that a little bit more would come from that education kind of point. Just like they educate about all sorts of things, they could 100% put money into helping educate, not favouring anybody's business, but just educate around hemp and cannabis and the difference. I think people are definitely starting to shift, so it's really good compared to 9 years ago. I think the other thing that holds the industry up is collaboration. I really do think that if we start looking at everybody as a competitor, we actually start falling over. The more hemp that's out there, the better. That's my theory. We've been around for what I think a long time. Feels like a very long time, and we've seen a lot of brands come and go. And I really do think that that education point. Then also, I think the other thing that we need is collaboration, and then the other thing is infrastructure. So I think because hemp, and particularly hemp fibre, it's difficult with transport, and now it's going to be even more difficult with transport coming up in the future. Hopefully that won't last long, but I think it will impact hemp and transporting hemp fibre around the country. So I think infrastructure is another one that's holding the industry up. But I love that there is lots of different in Australia, we've got different organisations at times. So we've got, an industry association in every single state. So I think that is really important. And what's really important is the fact that the government's now starting to understand and take notice that hemp actually has an ability to get Australia out of financial debt. It also has an ability to support Australian farmers diversify within their offering. And the fact is that it grows really well generally, depending on your what seed you've got, variety, all of those things. It generally grows really well in Australia. I think back in the day, it was actually illegal not to grow hemp. Like I'm talking hundred years ago. So it's so funny that we came from it's illegal to not grow hemp to kind of like you have to have a license to grow hemp. At the start, when I first started Hemp Collective, I thought, imagine if everybody could grow hemp, and then we could have all of these people growing hemp and they could bring it into one area and everybody benefits. That's what I would have hoped for the hemp industry. I think it's gone a little bit more business-like. But hey, look, I guess it's got to evolve somehow. And that's why I joined iHemp, because I think that conversation around education is really, really important. And, doing things like having a field day connects people, creates more conversation. And those things are really, really important, I think, for the future of hemp.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you talked about collaborative. You did organise for us to go to a shop in Nimbin with a group of collaborative farmers. And I've always said to people, like, I'm a sports massage therapist and aromatherapist, amongst other things. And I used to say when I used to organise networking events, look, collaboration's the way forward. And if there's 20 people in the same area, there's obviously a need, and you can collaborate and advertise together, so you get massage out there big time, and people can decide who they want to go to, but you get it out there rather than a couple of lines, you're getting double pages. And I could see this happening with hemp, after going to that collaborative talk in Nimbin. And the healing benefits of hemp are just extraordinary. Like you touched on the hemp leaves for juicing and Crohn's, that's phenomenal. And I did interview Gerald Taylor, and he said something similar. Like he said, if you got any sort of digestive bowel issues, just one hemp juice shot will make you feel a lot better. And after a week, you'd be feeling on top of the world and back in normal alignment. And obviously you can't make medical claims like you said, but the clients are speaking, the clients are saying these and testifying it, so that's good. So looking ahead, where do you see hemp having the greatest impact in wellness, construction, food, or beyond? And what excites you the most about our future?
Oh, look, I think what is probably going to take off, I feel like the wellness side has kind of been chugging along for a little while, but I really see that there's probably a lot of movement within the construction side of things, whether that's Australian or being imported. I do see that people are starting to understand that if you invest in your home and you make it a healthy home, a lot of these other things will fall off, like your health things. So, there's all sorts of toxins in our homes, but also outside in the environment. And if the one thing you can control is having a hemp home, it's definitely on the top of my list for sure, is building a beautiful, healthy, breathable hemp home. So I really do think that that there's, and too right, there should be movement within the construction side of things, because there's a lot of innovation coming out. So there's hemp panels and hemp blocks, and I think there's a lot of things going on within that. That's just what I'm seeing as part of iHemp, is actually that there's a lot more people looking for the building side of stuff, which I think's awesome. Wellness, I think there's a little bit of movement in there, but I also think there's a lot of big brands coming out. And I think the one thing that I would say with the wellness side is just making sure that they're actually including a decent amount of hemp. When we started, people were like, oh no, that's a hemp product, and there was 1% of hemp in there. I think what's really important is, like, we use really good hemp seed oil in our products, and making sure that, wherever you're getting them from is also, utilising hemp seed oil in a really good way. So movement wise, I feel like that's kind of where things are happening and moving in the hemp space. And what was the other question? There was another question in that.
I'm not sure, because I just go with the flow, but yes. So yeah, that's really good answer. So there's a lot happening. Basically, what you see for the future of hemp and where it's going.
Yeah, so I think for the future in hemp, what I'm hoping is after these inquiries, the Senate inquiries, the government will go away and actually look at a really good plan. And what I'm hoping for and what's going to happen will be very different. What I'm hoping is that hemp will have a national education plan rolled out. That's what I would hope, and that people will start to understand the difference between hemp oil, hemp seed oil, CBD oil, THC oil. I would hope that people start to understand those different categories, I guess you could say. I hope that education component starts coming out, and that it's not favoured towards one business or another. I actually think it just needs to be generic. This is what we use for wellness. This is what's used for this. This is what's used for that. And so I'd like to see that. I think there'll probably be some kind of hemp hub. So somewhere where people maybe can come and experience it, and or there's a processing facility or something like that might be around in regional areas maybe. I'm not 100% sure. But we're still here doing what we do because we're really passionate about the plant and what it can do for the future of not only our business, but many other businesses and family businesses, is what I would hope would come to more of the fore than more of the people who are not corporate, but like bigger companies. So I would hope more Australian families can benefit from hemp in the future. That's kind of what I would like to see, and I would love to see more collaboration. It's very difficult to collaborate with like-minded businesses at times, because either people are very focused on making money, or there's just different ways to collaborate, I think. So, I'd like to see a little bit more collaboration coming through, which is what I'm trying to do with a couple of other businesses around as well. So, and the conversations, I think having these conversations are really important, so that the more, two people might watch this and go, oh, I didn't know that about hemp, or why people use hemp, and all of those types of things. So as we go, change takes a long time. This is, I forget that we're pioneering an industry that, cotton would have had to do, and timber and opioids, all of those would have had to have pioneered along some way. So I feel like we're in that pioneering stage, and I feel like we're about to pop out of that into that awareness, that more encompassing and incorporating it into our everyday lives. That's what I feel like. But, I like to think positively. So, who knows?
Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier that hemp's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and then you just mentioned cotton, and I believe, I might be wrong, that cotton was one of the reasons that hemp got pushed to the side because it was in competition with it. So, and you also said we need DPI, which I know, the license. What things are blocking, in your opinion, hemp becoming public? Because you've just mentioned as well about how the government are coming to terms with how great hemp is for all the things that we mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the actual question again? Sorry, say that one again.
Yeah. So, what do you think are blocking the hemp industry from moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's all those things I just really spoke about, the education component, the infrastructure investment, the collaborative approach. I think there's a few things that are kind of blocking. In regards to cotton, I think what hemp's always maintained is that we're not here to take over the world. It's actually about incorporating hemp with other products. So, for example, Fens use a hemp cotton blend. If you had a full hemp shirt, it's very rigid. So you kind of need those complementary products to go in with hemp. And I think, yes, of course, hemp is going to threaten industry, but I think the biggest thing I would say is actually it can be complementary to that industry. It can be complementary to the timber industry. It can be complementary to cotton. And that actually, just like when film came in, when everyone took film photos, I started off with, film photo and, moved into digital. You have to adapt to those times. And I think that's actually the really most important thing, is actually adapting to, everyone's going to, it's interesting as society goes on, we want the next best thing. Oh, is it this? Is it, what is it? And I think hemp has a lot of those answers that could potentially help with multiple industries along personal care, wellness, construction, textiles. I think, I really do think that infrastructure is probably holding us back here a little bit.
Yeah, it's that's a big one, yeah. And it's good that you are so passionate about this topic, and I think you'd be great to start a hub and get things happening. So, if there was one thing that you could do to change the world, what would that be to make a difference?
I would say more people becoming self-sufficient. That would be, not necessarily hemp related, but I think people being more self-sufficient in the way they create their food and water and all of those things. But if it was to be, the answer was to be with hemp, I think more people should grow hemp. And use it in their everyday lives. I think about it becoming an integration into your everyday life. I think that could change a whole bunch of stuff for people. I mean, you just need to go on and read the reviews that we've got that has changed some people's lives just using hemp seed oil. It's crazy and it's awesome all at the same time. We get our reviews in and we go, oh, that's why we do what we do, because it's helping this person and that person or people's pets or whatever it might be. So I just think more people incorporating hemp into their everyday lives would be great.
Fabulous. And as this is a wellness show, what wellness go-to is your must?
Ooh, my wellness go, obviously using my products. So, I'm very lucky. I have them on tap here pretty much. But wellness wise, I think it's what works for you and your body, and choosing products that, one is Australian made. I think that's really important, because when you think about where ingredients come from, it's better that it comes from this central location, rather than all over the world. So I think supporting Australian products is really, really important. And when it comes to the wellness space, look, I'm an advocate of hemp anyway. I take hemp internally, I put it on my body, and I feel good. And a lot of other people feel good with it as well. So I don't know, there's lots of things that you can do on a wellness perspective, but I think it's just really knowing the brand, knowing the products that you're putting in, and having that connection to those products.
Thank you. And I will put your Hemp Collective website with our notes. And just before we close, is there anything you would like to share with the listeners?
I just think have conversations. It's about actually breaking down those barriers to why you're not going to use that product. And I think if you think you're going to get high off it, well, you're probably going to be paying a bucket load more money for something that you're going to have happen to you from there. But it was really interesting. You know, we met with a big country who wanted to come over to Australia to learn about what Australia has done right and what Australia has done wrong, so they can go back to their country and implement all the good stuff. And I thought, wow, that is an excellent. I think it was an excellent way to do it. But one of the things I found really interesting, the pharmacist was like, oh, what do you mean this makes a difference if you put it topically onto your skin? And I said, well, if you think about it, the skin is the largest organ in the body, and anything you're putting topically on, it's obviously going to have a benefit internally. And he tried some of our, I think it was repair balm or something at the time. He went, oh, I actually don't have much pain. And I went, yep, it's pretty amazing. Like, hemp is an amazing plant, and what it does for the planet also, with the carbon side of stuff, I think that's actually another thing that I think could really do with extra work. Because if you think about it, you got farmers growing hemp who could actually be getting carbon credits to diversify their income. And then you've got, you know, a holistic way of generating revenue for that farmer. So anyway, sorry, I know that was digressing, but ultimately, I think anything you do with hemp is going to be great for you and your body.
So, dear listeners, bring on the hemp into your daily lives. And thank you so much, Maxine, for being on the show and sharing your wonderful words of wisdom and giving up your precious time.
Oh, no worries. And look, good luck with your hemp grow. I think it's awesome. You're giving it a great shot. You're seeing what works and what doesn't work, and you're doing something within the industry. And I think that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter how big or little you're doing it, and it's awesome. I'm so stoked that it can be inspirational to incorporate that into your everyday life. So thank you so much for having me on board, and I really hope your listeners got some value out of that. So yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, and thank you to the listeners for supporting the show. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you.